Hello everyone, it's summertime, it's warm, we have ripe tomatoes from the garden, and the best way to beat the heat is with a ceviche. So today we're going to make an imitation crab ceviche with ingredients from the garden. For our ceviche, we're going to need some imitation crab. This is 1 pound and it's going to make quite a lot. We have some red onions from the garden, as well as Roma tomatoes and Serrano peppers. From the market, we have some lime, cilantro, and this is optional, a cucumber. And then as far as seasoning, we're going to need some salt. Let's begin by cutting up our imitation crab, and we're going to cut them into thirds. We want them shreds like this as opposed to this, which is not what we want. Okay, so we're gonna... Next, we're going to add in our Roma tomatoes from the garden. These are vine ripened. They're extra juicy when you let them ripen. The tomato juice will add acidity and flavor to our ceviche. And the fleshy part of the tomato, well, they're perfect because they're going to reabsorb everything that came together, the lime, the salt, the imitation crab, and all that stuff. And when you scoop it up with a tortilla chip, it's going to be really, really flavorful. So let's slice them and put them in our dish. As far as how much tomato you're going to use depends on your taste preference. We're going to start with about 1.5 pounds of tomatoes for the 1 pound of imitation crab that we have. So best to slice these in half, then slice them into strips, and then come around this way and cut them up into dice. So the trick when it comes to cutting tomatoes is to slide your knife back and forth until it cuts through, and you're going to want to cut the tomato from the flesh side in. If you cut on the skin, it's going to mash your tomato up. You're going to get this. So best to cut from the flesh side. It cuts through more easily. Next, we're going to add lime juice to our crab and let it sit as we prepare the other ingredients to add into our bowl here. These are 4 big juicy limes, and you just we're just going to add these. If we need more later on, we'll add more. Next, we're going to add in our cilantro, and we're going to use half a bunch first, but I think this recipe calls for 1 bunch of cilantro. We're going to remove about 1 inch of the stems away, and we're going to keep the other parts of the stem. This is where there's a lot of flavor in it. So we're going to finely chop the stems. And then we're going to get to this part and chop this up too, the leafy part. Come over this way. And let's put it in our ceviche. Let's give it a mix. Ultimately, you're going to want to do a taste test later on and see if you prefer more or less cilantro. As far as how it's looking, it looks like it's a pretty good ratio right now. Our next ingredient is optional. It's a cucumber. I find that cucumbers add a nice refreshing and cooling effect to our ceviche. So we're going to use maybe 3/4 of this cucumber. And we're going to skin it first. Depending on the cucumber's variety, some have more astringent peels than others. We're going to remove this one because this peel is a little bit tough and a little bit astringent. Let's cut this in half, and then in half again we're going to dice our cucumber. Dices. And we're going to dice our cucumber. We have 2 more ingredients left, and that's onion. We're going to use a red onion. Since these are a little bit smaller, we'll use red onions. If you get an onion from the market, it's probably larger, and you'll just need 1 onion. Fresh onions, man, they burn. But they will be really, really tasty on our dish. I gotta remember to breathe through my mouth. That will help with the burn. If I had a fan, I would blow a fan through here, thanks to a suggestion from a viewer the last time we chopped onions. She suggested that we get a fan, and it really helps. So if you have a fan nearby and you have really fresh onions, it helps with the tearing. So we're going to quickly slice our onions, dice them up, and add it to our ceviche. Our final ingredient is going to be the serrano pepper. We have 2 serrano peppers. These are about 1.5 inches each. So when I say we have 2, please note the size, because if you buy it from the market, they're probably closer to 3 inches. So for a mild ceviche, we use 1. For a medium, we use 2. For spicy, 3 or 4, or even 5. So let's add these into our ceviche. With the serranos, we're going to give them a fine dice, and we're going to keep the seeds and everything. So slice them into thin strips like this. We're doing this last because peppers are really spicy. They're going to get on your fingers, and with it being the last thing, you'll want to dice them up and then get your hands washed so that you don't accidentally touch your eyes, because you may not be conscious about it, but we often touch our eyes more than we realize, and we'll know for sure that we've touched our eyes when it burns. Once again, just like the tomatoes, cut it in half and then cut it from the flesh side, because the skin side is very tough and you'll end up mashing your chili. It's kind of dangerous because you can wedge the knife into your hand and slice yourself. The size of your dice is going to give different effects on how spicy it is going to be. If you do a very fine chop, then when you bite into your ceviche with some pepper in it, it's not going to be as potent. It's not going to burn your tongue off. So we're going to do a fine chop on these and add it to our ceviche. With our ingredients all put together, we're going to come in with a little bit of salt. This is probably just a teaspoon worth. The amount of salt you put is going to be dependent on your taste preference, as well as the amount of salt that's already in the imitation crab. So it's hard to give you a measurement because each person or company that makes imitation crab is going to have different sodium levels. That's a really good ceviche. As the day's warming up, this will be covered up and sitting in the fridge chilling. And during the hottest part of the day, we'll bust it out from the fridge, have it with our chips and a favorite beverage, and we'll beat the heat that way. Thanks for joining me in the greenhouse today as we make this dish together. And until the next video, I hope you get a chance to make it and enjoy some imitation crab ceviche with ingredients from your garden or from the market. Either way, it's a really tasty dish, and I hope you do give it a try. Thanks again for watching. It was fun to put together this video for you. These types of videos are a little bit more challenging to put together, and I hope to be able to find more time in the future to put them out on a consistent basis. With the way we grow our food, we grow and are blessed to be able to harvest from the garden and craft dishes from them. One of the gardening bucket list items that we were able to cross off the other night was pasta sauce with ingredients from the garden. We got all our ingredients from our garden and it felt really, really good. We had our red onions, our Lort's Italian garlic, we had our thyme, oregano, basil, and our Roma tomatoes along with San Marzano tomatoes, and it was one tasty dish.